Okay, hello and welcome to the Saga of the Clone Saga, aka the Clone Zone, a podcast where we, the students of S.H.I.E.L.D., read through the Clone Saga, and we did that already, so now we're just reading stuff that's even remotely relevant to it. It's a painful ride, but at least somebody will watch it and have to deal with it like we did. I'm Billy, and I'm joined by...
I'm Matt.
I'm Mike, and you might as well just retitle this podcast at this point Saga of the Jackal, because that's the only reason why we're still reading.
And I'm Vincent, and our sponsor today is hamburgers. So eat hamburgers. Now today, our tangential content is Spider Island. But Spider Island is way bigger than I thought it was, and so we're splitting it up in 2 episodes. And in this episode, we only read part 1 because there's all kinds of other shit. So first, we're talking about something that is really not really relevant at all, but I kind of thought it was in the middle of what we were reading, but it's actually in the beginning of what we're reading. Also, while I'm at it, I will hold up the book where I read this stuff, Spider-Man Big Time Complete Collection Volume 2.
What a horrible cover.
With a great cover, great back cover, by the fan favorite and critically acclaimed artist Humberto Ramos. And a significant portion of this book is Spider Island. So let's start with Amazing Spider-Man 665. Dan Slott, in the Big Time era, with very few exceptions, is now the sole ongoing writer of Amazing Spider-Man. In this issue, he's joined by artist Ryan Stegman, who has done lots of Spider-Man work. We will see more of him in 2 episodes, and maybe again, we will. But also, right now, he's involved with lots of Venom stuff. And this story, I think it's called, is it called Crossroads or something? It's something Roads.
Crossroads.
It's a cute little story about the friendship between Peter Parker and Betty Brant.
I mean, it's more of a story of why Peter Parker's a horrible friend to Betty Brant.
No.
They have an ongoing movie date, but it's not a date because Betty is dating Flash Thompson at this point, who is secretly Venom. And they're supposed to watch this foreign film. That's their latest one. But Pete is very busy nowadays because he's got a legitimate job for the first time in forever. He's working at Horizon Labs. And so he keeps delaying, or they're not able to make it. And she decides, I think she does try and go to the movie by herself, right?
Yeah, that's where she's attacked.
She asked Flash first, but Flash is too busy out being Venom.
Well, he's getting he has to go to the airport and called on a mission, but he does warn Betty that the part of town they're going to see the movie, because it's only playing in one theater in New York City, is that it is a bad part of town.
But to be fair, Flash also says, like, hey, as soon as I get back, we can go see whatever the hell you want and stuff like that. So I don't think Flash really comes off as a dick at all.
No, but Pete kind of does.
Yeah, mostly because before she decides to just say fuck it and go by herself, he like snaps at her on the phone. He's like, well, I had so many shitty years as a freelance photographer, and now that I'm actually making something of myself, you want to be mad at me, blah, blah. I'm going to hang up on you. I'm a little fucking kid. Because that's the Peter Parker we know and love.
Well, the problem with this is, I mean, you guys like this, but I hate it because they stated that they do this on the first Monday or something of every month. If Peter is such a good friend to Betty, then he would already proactively like make sure he has time off to go do this.
But that's not him being a good friend. That's just Peter Parker not knowing how to control his life.
Right. I don't think that's realistic. I think it's fair to be like frustrated with Pete because he's kind of a total dick in this instance, but I don't think the fact that he couldn't get off work is a reason to hate this issue, let alone Peter Parker.
Well, all right. Well, if he can't get off work, then he can definitely take a night off of being with the Avengers, or he can definitely take a night off being with the Future Foundation, or just not go on patrol as Spider-Man that night. He has very multiple options in any sort of way to get out of doing anything to end up being with Betty.
Matthew.
Yeah.
Peter Parker is a dick in more than just this instance. Peter Parker has consistently been a dick throughout the... How many episodes are we on now? 60?
61.
Yeah, 61. He's been consistently a dick through at least 58 of these episodes.
To be fair, about 58 of these episodes are taking place during the Clone Saga.
Which still happened. There wasn't a new 52 that, like, absolved that.
Which
there was one more day.
But all of that still happened, though.
But differently. They missed the altar. But she decides to go to the movie by herself, and she gets mugged. And the caption...
No. She doesn't just get mugged, Vince.
Well, she gets mugged, but the caption specifically note... The caption specifically notes she was not sexually assaulted.
Oh, thank God. She's only having a brain hemorrhage.
Yes. And basically, then the drama of the issue going forward is once Pete figures out he doesn't go to the hospital like everyone else in her life, he puts on his suit and is prioritizing catching the guys. And he's going around beating the shit out of all these goons and extorting them, trying to figure out where this guy is.
Which is a Batman thing to do, and never be Bruce Wayne.
And eventually Aunt May calls him and is like, "Where the fuck are you?" And then she parallels it with the night of Uncle Ben's death. And it kind of pulls heartstrings a little bit. Mm-hmm. He's really stuck between the rock and the hard place, looking like a complete fuck up, even though because he can't reveal that he's trying to do what he thinks is the right thing. But he learns his lesson, and I think it's like slightly diminished because he totally wins and accomplishes his goal at the end anyway. Like you have to do that, I guess, but I don't think the epilogue where he actually catches the guy was really necessary. It might even been way stronger without it.
Especially with the fact that he got the locket back, which was like one of the big cruxes of this issue, is that was an important thing.
Yeah. But
interesting. You know what? I hadn't even read the epilogue, so I didn't.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot better before that.
Yeah. But there's that big drama there, but also throughout, there's great moments with Aunt May, great moments with Flash Thompson, great moments with MJ, surprisingly, and some. These moments are always iffy, but I say some great Jonah moments as well.
I completely agree. I loved Jonah's role in this story.
Bro, Jonah was great. I mean, everyone in this issue was great except for Peter Parker.
I disagree. I think, and I have read through the Big Time era, but I'm
sorry you had to read through that.
This issue didn't immediately re-click in my mind when I read it. I would say this is probably like top 10 one-offs from Dan Slott, which at first sounds not super important, but when you consider how much Spider-Man Dan Slott has written, if it's like one of his 10 best stories, that's somewhat
noteworthy. If this is one of his 10 best stories, then I'm shocked.
Well, I've read too much of Dan Slott's Spider-Man, and this is some of the best he's written Peter Parker. To be fair, the way he usually writes Peter Parker is bad, but
there's not blood running from my nose, but I feel like it's going to happen in 2 seconds.
So now let's get into Spider Island Infested. And these were little backups that ran through a bunch of issues from around 659 to 665. And a lot of these are just real quick 2-pagers. So we're going to fly through them and maybe give some very quick comments. First one, the Jackal. He's experimenting with bed bugs, and New York is infested with bed bugs just like real life. And that's really the main one of these, which like actually sets up the upcoming plot. So real quick, does anyone have some random quick thoughts on these 2 pages of bed bugs?
I like Barry Kitson's art.
Yeah, I mean, I don't find a close up of a bed bug very enticing, but there's like one moment where he draws the Jackal next to a gargoyle, or actually it might be. I don't know if it's a gargoyle actually or Kane. I think it's a gargoyle.
It's a gargoyle.
Yeah. Second one, we have a bully almost creating a school shooter, but then the bully murders his victim with his spider powers.
I felt like this was odd.
It's kind of fucked up, but I like it.
Yeah, it's really this was bad in all ways.
Yeah, I really did not like this bit. It's like, I don't know, like, what if Peter Parker accidentally killed Flash Thompson?
What if Peter Parker
Oh,
accidentally
yeah.
killed Betty Brant? Oh
No,
wait,
but
that almost happened to me.
it's Flash Thompson killing Peter Parker. The bully kills the victim.
No,
What?
but the kid that's being bullied, if it weren't for spider powers, was gonna shoot him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so really
sorry,
lives
maybe
are
I read it
saved on
wrong.
this.
It's still dumb.
Yeah, because and
But
then it's like
it's
the
like
way it's
fucked up.
written is we're supposed to like then feel bad that the bully ends up killing the guy, but like he's still a bad person. So like
So is
no,
Peter Parker.
No,
Peter Parker's a bad person.
It's just all fucked up.
No,
I don't.
no. Wait a minute, Billy. You know that's wrong.
No, you know it's right.
I am with Billy on this one.
No,
We
you're
have
not.
seen more asshole behavior from Peter Parker in this show which is why I'm very angry both of you are defending 665.
All right. Next backup, we have Emma Rios on art. This looks pretty good, but I thought the storytelling was kind of unclear. I don't fully understand what's happening here and what the point is. There's like a father.
Well, the point is showing that Peter Parker can't be married because if he's married, he cannot go out and be Spider-Man.
There's a father who has spider powers, and there's some kind of like house fire which is spreading along the block or an apartment building or something, and this father saves his family, and Spider-Man also saves someone. And I really think the involvement of Spider-Man at all in this story really distracted me from what the hell they're trying to say.
Yeah.
And what I think they're trying, not really what they're trying to say, but what they're saying, and I think what Mike is saying, is I believe like the father is like, well, I had to save my own family because someone else is still in the fire and dies, and the firefighters can't save them.
He says, I can't go risking my neck, not when I've got a family who depends on me. They're my responsibility.
And Spidey, and so someone dies off panel in the fire, even though we saw Spidey save someone else. And so Spidey didn't.
It's a string of fires in the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, the firefighter didn't get to that person, and this father prioritizes his own family over this stranger.
Well, no, they're already saved. Like he gets them out pretty early. They're just watching everything else burn. But there's the dialogue from one of the firemen that goes, "Well, if someone was here just like a couple minutes sooner, we could have saved everybody."
Yeah, I don't really get the point. And if the way we're reading into it is their point, it's a really dumb point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I can't not read it that way with how outspoken Slott has been about hating Peter being married. But I think I think what he is trying to show here is that just because everyone is going to get spider powers in New York, not everyone is going to be good with them.
Yeah.
But also like trying to show, but it's also still not good.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of it might just be the length. Even if you just had 4 pages instead of 2, you could have made some of those points clearer.
Let's talk
Now,
about Cloak and Dagger.
yeah, so this is also Emma Rios, but it's a little different style. We have Cloak and Dagger, and they get outplayed by some drug dealers who now have spider powers. And they compare the dealers to Spider-Man because remember, their first several appearances were in Spectacular Spider-Man in the 70s or maybe early 80s by Bill Mantlo and Al Milgrom.
Is that what happens in the story? Because I'm looking at it, and obviously I read it, but like panel to panel composition and just the art in general is so confusing that I honestly have no idea what happened in the story.
Yeah,
The Jackal shows up looking really bad.
Yeah.
I did not like these 2 pages at all.
I did like I like the effect he gave on Cloak and Dagger though. I thought his art on them was good.
her art.
I'm sorry, yeah, her art.
But yeah, she's kind of going for like a sort of experimental Cloak and Dagger thing, and it looks cool, but the storytelling doesn't work.
Right.
It looks
I
like
was-
a
Visually
cross
cool.
between Bill Sienkiewicz and who is the artist on Catwoman? Gullah March. It looks like a cross between Sienkiewicz and Gullah March.
Visually really cool. I just have no idea what's happening.
No,
And
the panel layout is bad.
Emma Rios, this artist, goes from this to a tie-in Spider Island Cloak and Dagger miniseries, written by Nick Spencer, current Amazing Spider-Man writer. And I believe that's his first kind of dip into the Spider-Man franchise, though I'm not sure how much Spidey is in that series. Obviously, it predates his Superior Foes, and at that point, Nick Spencer, he had written Iron Man 2.0, which is a War Machine book with a stupid name, and he had done some fill-ins on Secret Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
So he's pretty new at Marvel, and his one and only work at DC. Well, actually, no, that's wrong. But his work at DC at this point were Jimmy Olsen backups. But yeah. Then we have pages of Shang-Chi teaching Spider-Man some moves. And I don't really care about this.
No,
I
whatever.
don't like this.
It's like they do like a big splash page montage, and like the art is cool if it wasn't just a generic style with the coloring and everything like that. Like if this was Shang-Chi in the late 70s, this could be a really, really, really cool page, but I just glossed over it. Then 665, instead of a 2-page backup of Infested, we have, I think it's like 8 or so, or 10. And so we have a chunkier one here. We have a flashback to the moment when Peter Parker is officially legally adopted by Aunt May and Uncle Ben. And he acts like a little fucking shit after Aunt May saves him from getting run over by a car.
Hey, Matt, how old was Peter when they adopted him?
That's a wonderful question because it changes all the time. I have no idea.
I'm taking it he's about 7. That's 6 to between the ranges of 6 to 8. I think it's always been right.
Sure.
So old enough to know to not play in the fucking street.
I mean, yeah.
Also,
Okay, yeah. So this whole story sucks.
Also, way older than snapping at the woman who's taking care of you. He literally just goes, "You're not my mom." Like little.
Yeah, he just snaps. And the better part about it is that he's on the ground playing it in what looks like dirt. At like the very end of the sidewalk of the house.
I think
And
it's
then
Shaw.
the very next panel that we see Peter in, he's laying in the middle of the street. So did he just crawl out into the middle of the street and no one noticed that?
He's a dumb kid.
The story is garbage.
Also, I mean, the question of when he was adopted is a good one because it's never clear to me like how much legitimate memories he has of his parents.
Right.
because it often seems like he barely knew his parents at all.
That's the
And
impression that I get. Yes.
and Aunt May and Uncle Ben are he truly feels that they are his parents. But in this, especially if he have a reaction like this, that indicates that he has very raw, fresh memories of his parents. So
I've always thought that the mystery of Spider-Man's parents should be a really big crux that we should always try to explore and make a long-standing narrative out of, because I always think that should work.
yeah, they should be super spies.
I mean, I think for the next Spider-Man series of films, and I really think they should explore it in Far From Home, because we saw Nick Fury is in that movie today. If they make a long-standing thing of Spider-Man's parents being a crux mystery, and wouldn't it be really cool if he found a magic token to a subway station inside his dad's calculator that opens up a bat cave? I think that would be fantastic.
I'd see that movie.
That's an Oscar winner right there.
Now flash forward to the present. Also in the flashback, he's wearing a Mets jacket.
Yes, very good attention to detail there by Dan Slott. But then there's another Mets reference later that I'm angry at coming up.
Well, then he wears the same jacket in the present at a certain point. Obviously not the exact same one, though that would be funny. So J. Jonah Jameson, that's still his name, right? J. Jonah Jameson Sr.
Yeah. No. His name is Jay, as in Jay. He's Jay Jameson.
Okay. Is he a triple J or just J Jameson?
I think he's just Jay Jameson.
Okay.
I don't know what the J in J Jonah actually stands for.
No, it has to be. Shouldn't it have to? It has to be J because Jonah's a junior, isn't he?
Is he? I don't know.
Jonah Jameson Jr. Yeah, because wait,
No, I
because
don't think he is.
third.
John
John
isn't a junior, right? So it's not John?
His son is John.
Right.
Maybe
but
the J in his name is John.
I can't remember if John had a junior name on him or not. Junior tag on his name.
Not that I can remember.
I think he's the third. I think they're all John, and maybe Jay's middle name is Jay.
And Jonah's middle name is Jonah?
Yeah.
But then they're not. But he's not a junior.
But then, then that's not how senior and junior works.
No, they're juniors through John.
That's not how it works.
No, you have to have the same middle name too. It's gonna be the same full name.
Well, fuck that. So whatever. Jonah's dad and Aunt May, they're moving to Boston, which I think it's funny that Jonah calls it out. It's like, hey, this is really shitty PR. My dad is moving out of the city that I'm the mayor of. And while he's trying to do a cleanup kind of campaign.
Yeah, I kind of hate this. Why is it? This is the second time in 2 episodes, maybe, where we have a scene with Jonah and Pete sitting down at dinner with their parents, and Jonah acts like a child.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Why?
I don't know.
He's temperamental and he's kind of angry or whatever, but he's not.
He's temperamental and angry, just like the writer of this book is on social media.
He's never going to get.
Are you saying that Slot writes Jonah off himself?
I think that's the breakthrough we're getting at here.
But
so here's the thing:
Jonah.
Slot writes Peter Parker the way he thinks he is, and he writes Jonah the way he actually is.
Basically, after this episode, Dan Slott's never coming on this podcast.
Dan Slott,
was he ever going to begin with?
No. Here's the thing. If Dan Slott is a big enough person to hear our less than stellar review of his work and still come on our show, he will infinitely have my respect.
Yes, but he also
no matter how bad I think his Spider-Man is.
So there you go. He didn't block me though, like he has a bunch of other people.
Peter Parker's girlfriend, Carly Cooper, she might have spider powers. I think she gets a fork stuck to her hand.
Yeah.
And then the end of this issue, sort of slightly, or the end of the story sort of slightly more interesting. Pete has a heart-to-heart with MJ, who is around to see Aunt May off. And he's like, hey, this is where Doc Ock drank tea, and here's where the Green Goblin held me on that famous cover. Because MJ still knows that MJ still knows that he's Spider-Man, and I don't like 100% understand and remember how that's the case. But
Well, it has to deal with whatever she whispered to Mephisto, right?
I don't know, but
I don't care.
she kind of plays a weird role in this era where they ignored her for a long time, and then she's kind of like his very occasional like confidant where he calls her on the phone and it's just like, hey, you're literally the only person that knows my secret identity, so here are some conversations that I can't have with my other supporting characters.
Well,
What's great about Pete and MJ is that we know Dan Slott viscerally hates their relationship. We know that throughout the 90s, the writers viscerally hated their relationship. And yet, still, even though the people writing the book don't like them together, they have the most compelling relationship in just in general. One of the most compelling relationships, even though they hate it.
Still the most
That's amazing.
interesting relationship in this book. But I do remember around the Spider Island time, specifically the epilogue issue of Spider Island, which I actually ended up buying because I thought that everyone thought that's when they were getting back together because they were really kind of hyping it up because MJ was in the book a lot. And then, no, that didn't happen.
Slott does that like 4 times in his run. Fucking
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Which is why I shortly jumped off when I realized I was just bamboozled.
Okay, well, while we're on the discussion, how about everybody list their favorite Peter relationships?
Mary
MJ.
Jane.
Romantic or otherwise?
Romantic.
Well, it's
MJ.
MJ.
Okay, well, see, you guys all say MJ, but I think his relationship with Chimneys is far more compelling.
His relationship with Chimneys is anything. It's very, I think it's a domestic dispute charge.
And it's still really compelling. It's abusive, but it's compelling.
Yeah.
But this story ends with Peter Parker giving Aunt May a Red Sox hat. And overall, the story's not that great. I feel like the MJ and then the Red Sox moment very slightly recovered, but it's whatever.
Yeah.
Now let's move into Deadly Foes. This is a one-shot tie-in to Spider Island, giving a little bit of a spotlight on villains. First, we have a Hobgoblin story, which isn't really that relevant, but I'll just quickly go through the basics. So Phil Urich is the Hobgoblin now. He's just the Hobgoblin, but with a sword.
He's got a flaming sword, dude. It's awesome.
It's kinda
The
awesome.
first pages of the story quickly go through his whole character history pretty well, actually. They even discuss the loners, but they retroactively twist all his motivations along the way. And I really have very mixed feelings about Phil Urich in this era and this Hobgoblin. Like the aesthetic with the stupid sword is cool.
I remember that stupid cover being on every back issue Marvel teaser of that stupid cover with him, the giant bat wings and the flame sword. You couldn't go anywhere for months without seeing that image posted somewhere on a Marvel comic.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the whole like goblin power struggle, it has some kind of cool moments and lore or whatever you want to call it. But again, I kind of really fucking dig that series of of Phil Urich as the heroic Green Goblin, and I find it kind of a bummer that Dan Slott just entirely eviscerated his character. And now in this, what actually happens in this story is he's a total creep. He puts on his suit and gets into a fight with Randy Robertson to break him and Nora Winters up so that he can get with Nora Winters. And in the end, Randy is like freaking out about how endangered he is, and Phil just shows up in the whole like Peter Parker back on the scene kind of way, and then kisses Nora, and it's just creepy as fuck. And Nora Winters is some frontline reporter supporting character in this era. She doesn't matter.
How Randy's and Nick Spencer's run, he's like cool and respected.
Randy's a cool character. He just like has never done much.
No, which is why I like that he's back in the book. Is Pete's
Yeah.
roommate? Spencer's
I
run.
like that a lot. Pete needs friend with dicks. He does not have enough dick
He
friends.
needs friends that don't have superpowers too.
He needs friends that don't have boobs.
Now we have the actual relevant story in Deadly Foes is a Jackal story, and surprisingly not written by Dan Slott, written by Fred Van Lente.
Oh, so
who
they got the Mets reference wrong.
we discussed. We've introduced him before, and the beginning of this issue, Joyce Delaney, the missing Gwen Stacy clone, who was one of the few dangling plot threads still from the Clone Saga, she fucking dies.
The first 2 pages.
Then the Jackal, we see him pulling Kane out of the grave. Just an extended sequence of what I think we saw on like one epilogue page before.
Yeah.
And he officially deems him Tarantula, which is, I don't really get the point of that.
It's because he's got a lot of eyes like a tarantula.
Like any spider, you mean? And obviously there are already tarantula characters in
Like the tarantula?
Yeah. And we get it.
And this is not?
Yeah, we get a quick Clone Saga recap with a few inaccuracies.
A few?
If you wish to go into that, you can do so now.
All right, I mean, it's pretty simple. This panel has Gwen Stacy hanging from the bomb when it was Ned Leeds, which is kind of a pretty major thing because the whole reason the Jackal ended up like killing himself was because Gwen Stacy was like, "You're a monster and you're a horrible person." So like that's kind of a significant error. And I guess the Mets thing is also an error, although I don't think that's quite as significant.
Listen. Shea Stadium was a garbage venue. Garbage venue. But to say that the only big thing that happened there was the Beatles played there in 1965 is a total fallacy. The Miracle Mets won the championship in 1969. A few years later, it's fine. That's the biggest thing. Learn your history, guys. Come on, it's not hard.
More significantly, though, the Ned Leeds erasure. That's not okay.
No, that's the worst part.
And then we saw Joyce Delaney die. And I was confused for like the first page of this because then another Gwen Stacy shows up. But this is, I guess, an initial clone, so a new clone character being introduced. And there's something involving the carrion virus too. And they're decomposing. I don't know.
Well, the other thing with this is the Jackal still has a secret lab under Shea Stadium, which was imploded. But they paved over that to make the parking lot for Citi Field, so I don't understand how this lab still exists.
That's not even worth questioning. It's just that's how things work.
Sure.
Mike, I might have an explanation for you, and it might be really far off, but have you considered it's a comic book?
I mean, if you're going to lay out the fact that, and even in the issue say that Shea Stadium is no longer stadium, then, like, just no. Like, I'm only picking it apart because the writer put it there for me to pick apart.
Here's the other thing. In quote unquote real life, Spider-Man and Mary Jane were married in Shea Stadium as well. Marvel did a three-way marriage. That's not really what I meant to say, but they had the marriage in the comic books, the marriage in the comic strips, and a real-life stunt marriage all at the same time, and that was in Shea Stadium. I don't think I've mentioned that. And Kane, the tarantula, I should say, he's just straight up brainless now. And the art, he's constantly changing. He gets a little xenomorphy for a little bit. And then another woman comes around, and the new Gwen Stacy clone dies. And this mysterious woman is recruiting the Jackal to get up to some shenanigans. Now, let's actually read Spider Island a little bit. First, we have 666, which is also still Prelude, pretty much.
Yep.
This is, I'd say, a pretty iconic cover. We have the Statue of Liberty with a Spider-Man mask painted on.
That's the that was the big promotional image, and I think that's the cover they went with for the Spider Island hardcover, was it not?
I don't know, because it differs, because the other cover they often use is the very next cover, which we will get to.
Right.
And Dan Slott, of course, and the artist here is Stefano Caselli. And there's some interesting status quo stuff, sort of. So the city of New York actually likes Spider-Man at this point, but they don't like Mayor Jameson because he still has his rage boner for Spider-Man. But it's presented like, other than that, Jameson is actually a pretty great mayor. It's only the fact that he has is like spending taxpayer dollars and is constantly won't shut up about Spider-Man that's dragging him down.
How about that?
Sure, why not?
This is where I have stuff to ramble about and frustrations, because the Young Allies show up to fight Hydro Man. And the Young Allies is originally a Golden Age team, and the Young Allies consisted of Bucky, Toro, the Golden Age Human Torch sidekick, and their 4 non-powered friends. And these 4 non-powered friends were all stereotypes. You had the fat one, the one with glasses, the stereotypical Irish one, and the super stereotypical black one, known as Whitewash Jones. And they had their own series, and it lasted over 20 issues in the 40s. And in fact, the Young Allies is a weird distinction as the first Marvel title to combine characters from different titles. Obviously, you had crossovers like the Human Torch fighting Namor, but the Human Torch and Namor, the Invaders is a retcon concept. There was no Golden Age Invaders book. Towards the end of the early Golden Age, you had like 3 issues where a bunch of the Marvel heroes teamed up as the All-Winner Squad. But the Young Allies predates that, so it's a weird little distinction. And I would recommend to both Captain America fans and Golden Age fans to track down the Young Allies 75th Anniversary Special, which is a really great issue, which explains a lot of the Young Allies history and also retcons. And this is around the same era where Bucky and Winter Soldier, there was a lot of retcons going on there about like how old was he, how was he involved in combat and stuff like that. And this Young Allies special retcons that actually they're not all racist stereotypes, and they were significant. And just like Bucky, they were significantly older. And the Young Allies comics that Marvel published are just that. In fact, comic books that the United States published, that Marvel in the Marvel universe published as propaganda. And so Whitewash Jones is just a totally normal, like, old black dude now. But back in the 40s,
The Winter Soldier kill him and then stuff him in the back of a trunk.
No. The different character. Back in the 40s, he was just drawn in these propaganda as a super stereotypical guy. But that's the real Young Allies. Then the second Young Allies is, for some reason, Heroes Reborn had a version of the Young Allies. And in the Heroes Reborn universe, Bucky is a character named Ricky Barnes, a girl. And Ricky Barnes, because Heroes Reborn is stupid and somehow wasn't entirely forgotten. Ricky Barnes came to the 616. And so as part of the Young Allies, even though I don't think she's in this story at all, Ricky Barnes, Bucky, is one of these Young Allies. And that's Marvel's excuse to crappily use this brand name. And the Young Allies, this version of the Young Allies was Sean McKeever's pet project. And it was mostly to continue his run or his being able to tell stories of his creation, Gravity, who is in this issue. And I think we very briefly mentioned or saw before. Or, yeah, because I was talking about Spider-Girl and the whole crappy imprint. And Spider-Girl, formerly Anya Corzone, also in this Young Allies team. There's a weird new version of Toro, who I don't think is in this story either. But whatever, it's all stupid. They're recycling a name from the Golden Age. Very frustrating. But the worst part is that Firestar is on this team. And she's kind of their leader, but still, she's way older than all these characters, and she has tons of experience from the New Warriors and Emma Frost's Hellions. And I don't know why she's leading a team of complete fucking no-names instead of hanging out with Nova and Justice and all that.
Yeah,
See, she's on a group full of no-names because she was in the New Warriors.
Which was
full
a
of
top
no-names.
tier title.
Listen. I want to get this off my chest. Not even Steve Ditko would say Speedball is a good character, Vince.
He created. God damn it.
I think it's great that you're like, why is she on a team of no names instead of hanging out with Speedball and Nova and Vance Astro?
Speedball is great.
Not if you ask Steve Ditko, but I mean, you can't really ask him right now, can you?
Not if you ask anyone that isn't Vince. Speedball sucks, and Vince is just delusional.
Actually,
But
Billy,
Stop canon on this show. Steve Ditko hates Speedball. You heard it here first. And Steve Ditko can't comment otherwise.
There's a handful of people who really love Speedball, and they will come after you.
And Vince is like 5 of them.
But the appearance of this shitty team, which includes Firestar, allows Dan Slott to sneak in an Amazing Friends reference, which really just makes the fact that this is the Young
Firestar exists.
I wouldn't call it sneaking in a reference. It's kind of ham-fisted.
Well, yeah.
It's calling attention to the thing people actually know her from, which is that cartoon back in the 80s. They don't even fucking remember if she was a New Warrior or not.
Well, he forces it in, which just makes it all the more frustrating that she's leading this band of fucking losers.
Yeah.
And then also, status quo stuff, Peter Parker doesn't have a spider sense, apparently, for some reason.
Which is why he has to learn Spider Foo.
I guess that's it. They never really connect that. Or it was captions I didn't read.
And captions you didn't read. The whole reason why he's training with Shang-Chi is because he lost his spider sense.
Phil Urich's around, Nora Winters is around, whatever. Peter Parker is on the Fantastic Four, Future Foundation, whatever. He has an alternate suit. MJ, as I said, helps him with stuff, kind of. He just calls her up and they talk. Flash Thompson is Venom. We get like 1 page of Venom in this issue.
Just mowing down AIM agents.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And then Spider-Man goes to an Avengers poker game. And first of all, it's a little, for half a second, it's like, fuck, Iron Fist, Wolverine, all these characters are in an Avengers poker game. But it's never really an Avengers poker game. It's supposed to be the floating superhero poker game. That's the concept.
That's an ongoing thing, isn't it, though? That's like, is that the started that?
It's an ongoing thing. Excuse me. Since like the 80s. But really the actual thing that fucks this up is Red Hulk being there.
Yeah.
And then he leaves the poker game. Honestly, in this issue, there's a bunch of scenes that don't matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
We see more of Jackal, how he turned Kane into a dumb pet. And then he turns someone else into a spider thingy. A mysterious character in a test tube gets turned into a tarantula look-like.
Okay, so real quick, we all know who that is, right?
I don't know, do they?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious.
Who is it?
Billy, do you know who it is?
Is it? I actually don't know.
Okay. I mean, it's Steve, right? It's
Is
got to
it
be Steve
Benjamin
Rogers.
Riley?
It's Captain America.
Yeah, it has to be. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think this reveal, well, that reveal is definitely not here, but also the Jackal is working for the Spider Queen. And I honestly, until reading this again now, it didn't click in me that with the Spider Queen, Captain America, all that connection, Spider Island is a sequel to the Spider-Man Avengers Disassembled tie-in from the Paul Jenkins run.
Wait.
What?
Because I wasn't truly listening to what you're saying. Is that actually Captain America? Please don't tell me that's right.
Yeah, it's Steve Rogers in the test tube that gets turned into a spider creature.
Of course it
But
is.
the Spider-Man,
Because who else would Jackal be like coming all over himself for?
the Spider-Man
Well,
arc,
Captain America.
the Spider-Man arc that tied into Avengers Disassembled is the first appearance of the Spider Queen, and she fucks around. And initially, it's Spider-Man teaming up with Captain America, and Spider Queen gets a little flirty with Cap, and it's like this whole alpha male mate, like that kind of trope.
Ew.
And then that story arc quickly transforms from a two-part Captain America team up into Spider-Man turning into a spider. And this is
Oh, you're right. Oh my god, I forgot
I
about
never
that.
really realized that Spider Island is basically a sequel to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because that's Paul Jenkins' run. That's JMS era, early sort of early JMS era, and that arc in Spectacular Spider-Man drawn by Humberto Ramos. So it all comes around, which gets us to Amazing Spider-Man 667, and this is the other iconic cover of this crossover or this storyline. Everyone on the cover has a dumb Spider-Man costume. That's the whole motif here. Everyone's a spider, and so all the superheroes are going to wear shitty Spider-Man costumes as well. Even though I don't remember if they actually do that, because they definitely don't in this issue. It might just be a cover gimmick. I don't remember.
I like Spider-Woman just wearing Ben Reilly's Scarlet Spider hoodie over her costume.
Yeah, so here's the thing. At first glance, this cover is a kind of cool gimmick, but when you actually look closely, almost every other character makes you cringe.
Mhm.
Jagger's boob window is the shape of a spider, which is so stupid. Hulk is somehow squeezing into an iron spider.
What's wrong with Hulk's head?
It's just, that's the art.
Ramos drew it.
Oh, okay.
Captain America is in the dumb big time stealth suit or whatever that suit is.
Stealth.
Yeah, Jessica Drew's wearing the hoodie. Also, there's a hashtag Spider Island on the cover,
Oh God.
which I would say hashtags on the cover of comic books possibly only been done worse by current Spider-Man writer Nick Spencer on his Captain America run with hashtag Take Back the Shield.
I do like T'Challa rocking Ben Reilly's costume.
Everyone looks stupid.
It kind of looks like he's just wearing pajamas.
Oh no,
Yeah.
like out of the design, if I had to pick one, like I don't think that one looks terrible.
Let T'Challa roll out of bed and put his mask on.
Okay,
That's
I
kinda why
think
I like it.
Cloak looks the most passable out of any of them.
Yes, I agree.
Luke Cage in the that's either the negative suit or it's the old school spider armor because it's silver and black.
And it looks bad.
Yeah, that one looks like they almost did Spider-Man, but then just pasted Luke Cage's face over it.
All right, so into the meat of things. Also drawing the cover. Everyone, let's give a warm welcome to Humberto Ramos,
No.
who will draw most of this storyline. This
But
is
what if he didn't?
his first time popping up on
Then
this
maybe I'd
podcast,
enjoy it.
and Humberto Ramos has drawn a shitload of Spider-Man during the Dan Slott era and before this. As I just mentioned, he drew that.
Emphasis on the word shit.
He drew that arc that this is kind of a sequel to. But actually, I think once we get past Spider Island next episode, I'm not sure if we'll actually see him again. But we will see.
He didn't draw a clone conspiracy?
No.
No, I don't think so. But he did draw. Did he draw any of Spider-Verse?
No. Spider-Verse is Capel.
Okay, so I don't know what he drew. I don't think we'll see him again. This issue opens with Carly Cooper revealing her spider powers to Pete. It's like I don't know. Spider Island is it's a somewhat fun, really over the top gimmick, and this opening gimmick of what if Spider-Man's girlfriend gets spider powers and he also can't reveal his secret identity. It's kind of funny.
Well, now that this is the third time she's shown up, I guess. How do we feel about Carly Cooper?
Ooh, she sure is a big old wet bag of absolutely nothing.
She's certainly a character that exists.
Yeah, she's just boring. I don't
How
care.
do you feel about her Spider-Man tattoo on her hip?
I agree with Pete. That's really hot.
I think it's funny. I think that's funny.
Terrible.
No, but it's hilarious because she's doing it like to get like Pete and Matt initially or something like that. That happens like
bad.
that happens right before everything we read in this episode.
Yeah, there's a scene though when she's jumping out of the cab that you can see it when she's swinging
Yeah.
away.
So here's the thing. What is her job? She's like a police officer or something,
She's
right?
a forensic scientist. She's Barry Allen.
Yeah, she's like Barry Allen, I think.
What is Michelle Gonzalez's job?
Being Peter Parker's roommate.
No, I think she's also like a police officer.
Well,
Is she?
New York's a big island, Vince.
She's some kind of law enforcement. I don't think she's a lawyer.
Pete can sleep with multiple cops if he
Yeah.
wants to.
Not right now, really. That's kind of weird.
Like Bobby Morse.
God. I forgot about that. Pete's like, I'm gonna go sleep with Clint's ex-wife.
Without digging into the shirt either.
Yeah.
And so Peter Parker, he has no idea what's going on. He's like, this never happened with MJ. And for me, just being a weird like Spider-Man fan, like there's definitely suggestions of Spider-Man Reign right there.
Quick, one more reference Matt doesn't like, and he might turn into dust.
We have
Spider-Man and Homecoming, or not Homecoming, Infinity War.
What do you mean? How is he still dust? That Far From Home trailer came out. I wonder how he comes back.
Oh.
we have scenes with Madam Web and Shang-Chi, which I don't care about, and I just put my note at this point because this is when I realized that this design of Madam Web with Julia Carpenter is very, very close to being a ripoff of Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti's Painkiller Jane independent character, who had her own TV show for a short while.
On Sci-Fi, it was a mid-2000s sci-fi show.
And some Painkiller Jane material has been published by my employer.
Congratulations.
And the Jackal, he gives a bunch of bums Spidey costumes and just lets them loose. They're supposed to tear shit up. And MJ, which
okay, I want to talk about that. He like gets them by breaking the. Is he holding a box? Because the panel looks like he breaks the floorboards, and they were already there.
I don't know what it is.
No, he's
it's like a hole in the wall.
panel directly in front of the one where he punches it, he's pointing to a stack of crates.
Okay, thank you, because I was like, did he just punch the floorboards and already have costumes in there?
That would be hilarious, but sadly, that's not the case.
As all the spider goons are pillaging and everything, MJ makes a Clone Saga joke, and like it's very clearly a redhead, and they have a noteworthy line, so it's obviously MJ, but also I wasn't 100% clear that it was MJ until it was clear that it was MJ because the art's not that great.
Oh, you finally admit it, big boy.
Also,
I want that sound clip, and I'll put it
I'm
in.
taking it. I'm downloading the episode and I'm ripping it.
I'm putting this in the group chat every day.
Yep.
MJ almost gets sexually assaulted. No fun there. And then the whole gang shows up, and it's everyone on the cover. It's basically some of the Avengers, some of the Fantastic Four, and the Young Allies, and Cloak and Dagger. And then this issue, part 1 of Spider Island, I think it ends on a hilarious note where Spidey and Carly Cooper are supposed to be driving to the airport to help Aunt May and Jameson Sr. leave. But they hear the news along the way. Carly Cooper's like, well, I have stupid powers now, so I'm going to run away. And obviously Pete is like, well, I'm actually Spider-Man, so I'm going to go after my crazy girlfriend and also try and help things out. And he shows up, and all these goons are in Spider-Man costumes. So Pete just gets the shit beaten out of him by all his friends. And this issue ends with a splash page of a bunch of people in Spider-Man costumes unconscious on the floor, including Peter Parker. I think it's hilarious.
It's hilarious because it's stupid.
Yeah, but it's funny.
No, I like it. I
It's
like
funny,
it.
and he deserves it. He's a
All
supervillain.
the spider costumes you're fighting, the costumes don't fit. They're tattered and ripped up. His is literally fine, and like you can see that he's fighting the other Spider-Men who are going crazy. So like, how would they not, like, with how much he works with the FF and the Avengers? How do they not know it's him? It's so bad.
Well, here's why. And you need to keep this in mind. When you're reading a Spider-Man book, if the Avengers show up, they're going to be idiots.
Oh, okay.
Every single time the Avengers appear in a Spider-Man book, they suddenly forget how to breathe.
But
I don't know why they're written like that. I guess because Spider-Man's the hero, so he needs to save whatever. But like, this is just how the Avengers act in a Spider-Man story.
No, see, I kind of get it because every time I'm reading a Spider-Man book, I wish I wasn't breathing. So maybe
someone send him an Avengers card. Of particular note, Carol Danvers kind of acts like a dick.
Yes.
The thing is his usual charming self punching Peter Parker in the face. And though the splash page is Peter Parker unconscious among a pile of bodies, Shang-Chi is jumping in to help him out. And so that's where we will pick up next episode.
After Madam Web knocks him out because of reasons.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now you can help him as he's getting the shit knocked out of him.
So next episode we will kind of actually read and finish Spider Island. So be on the lookout for that next week or so. And thanks
I'm also going to be on the lookout for the text alert from Vince in the chat going, wait, I messed it up. We're actually stretching Spider Island to 3 episodes, so I'm waiting for that to happen too.
And after that, we're doing Spider-Girl.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.